It's time for the Equity Equals Freedom podcast on WOBL. And now, here's your host, Rick Rucker.
That's right, folks. Back from Philadelphia, the MBA conference, Mortgage Bankers Association. I am back in the building. I'm excited. Got my good friend Blake here. But before that, we're going to go into the legal disclosures. The primary purpose of this radio show is to inform, entertain, and educate. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented during this radio show do not constitute legal or otherwise professional advice, opinions, or endorsements of any kind. Equity Capital Mortgage Group is a division of Gold Star Mortgage Financial Group Corporation, NMLS number 3446, equal housing lender. Gold Star corporate address, 100 Phoenix Drive, Suite 300, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48108. All right, got it all the way. Now, I got my coaching gear on today for my good friend Blake. Before we get started, I'm going to switch up the format here, only because it's an ode to the CMA. Who is your favorite country artist and why?
Oh man, that's hard. My favorite country artist. I'm gonna have to. Honestly, I'm probably going to have to go with Garth Brooks. I mean, I grew up on country music.
OG.
I grew up on country music, the old country music as well, too, from, like, my grandparents and then my father, and grew up in Nashville, right? So kind of, country music capital. But I'd say Garth Brooks, which was funny at the time, like, growing up, right? Because, like, my grandpa, looked at that as, like, I don't know. I couldn't even think, like, what. That's probably, like, my grandpa probably looked at, like, or like Jelly Roll or something like that, right? Like this guy's like more rock and roll than country, selling out stadiums, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he was kind of the first to do that, right? Like if you think about it, like to take almost like that with the rock, but huge bands, done and like say I'm gonna have an international tour, I'm gonna sell out, sports stadiums, put on a spectacle. Some of these things that you see, now with like Taylor Swift and all these other big time country artist, right? You know what I mean? That had these big shows, but Garth was probably the first in country music to kind of do that.
Yeah. The crazy part is for me, like, growing up in Twinsburg, back then it was like a small podunk hillbilly town. We tipped cows, there was a farm and all that good stuff. And in theory, you would think I was into country music, but I was obviously like more like hip hop, like, punk. I was big into Green Day, all those, bigger artists like that. Garth Brooks was probably like the first megastar, in my opinion, to come out and me be like, oh, okay, like I kind of like this music, and I kind of got away from like listening to any country, but then with some of the stuff we're working on with Crazy Bones and some of his projects, I really like got heavily back into it. And Morgan Wallen's like last CD to me is like, it reminds me of like Tupac's All Eyes on Me. Like it's just front to back classics. Like, and he's speaking from the heart, and it's so pure and it's so raw. And then Zach Bryan, like if I listen to like his latest CD, it is just so like deep, and it's kind of dark, but he talks about, I believe, like when he was in the military, all this stuff. I was like, these guys are like really creative. But to your point, a lot of them seem more like folksy, rock-ish over, the traditional country. Oliver Anthony, I'm a huge fan of that guy. I feel like he speaks for all of America with our feelings about the government. But not to get too far off the subject. So I just figured, since we're on a country station, obviously I'm repping Cool Cat Radio merch in the building. So Blake, take us through your younger days playing football, that good stuff, into college, and kind of take us through that journey and really just tell us, about where you're from and all that good stuff. I heard you and your old man speak. You and your old man remind me of me and my dad. My dad's like men's 158 IQ, I think like 152. You two are the equivalent of us, and it is just so funny to watch you guys banter back and forth. But go ahead and take us through, where you come from, how you grew up, sports, how you got into it, all that good stuff.
Yeah, no doubt for the viewers that don't know out there, what Rick's talking about. My father's Greg Williams, a long time, career NFL coach. So I grew up in the profession. When I was first a kid, growing up. I mean, he was a high school coach. I'm the oldest of my siblings, so I'm the only one who kind of experienced those high school coaching years. And then did a brief stint in college where he said, you know what, I wanted to see if I can go coach in college. Then he wanted to see if he could coach in the NFL. And it was just one of those fortuitous things. Like, we moved from Kansas City, which is where I was born, which is where my entire extended family is from and still lives, on both sides of the family. But we moved down to Houston, and he got a job at the University of Houston. And right when he got down
H-Town.
there, H-Town, and right when he got down there, like year one, they install the run and shoot, and Andre Ware wins the Heisman Trophy, right? It's like what we call the air raid nowadays, right? But the old school run and shoot, and nobody had seen anything like that before, right? Like University of Houston is throwing for 10, 11 touchdown passes in a game. 800 yards passing in a game, those crazy, sort of things. And
that sounds like Dak. Dak has like those games still, but he just does not win. I can't figure it out.
Well, you got to think, like, I mean, even in that era too, like, I mean, if you were averaging 250 yards passing a game, and you're probably up at like the top of the country.
Top tier, yeah.
And they were throwing for 3 times that, and
that's crazy.
And then the old Houston Oilers, that job opened up across town, and so that whole staff, from the University of Houston,
Warren
Moon went over there, and they took the run and shoot to the NFL, and obviously had a great Warren Moon, and so kind of grew up through all of that, got to see all of that. We moved to Nashville when the Oilers picked up and moved to become the Titans, so I kind of
What year was that again?
That was 1997.
Okay.
The 97
I didn't realize they made it to the 90s. The Oilers did.
Yep, and they're actually the Tennessee Oilers for the first 2 years while in Tennessee, not playing in Nashville because there was no stadium. Like, we were playing in Memphis and we're playing at Vanderbilt. Yeah, exactly. And then they changed the names over, grew up playing there. I grew up, I played at a powerhouse high school there in Nashville called Brentwood Academy. Tons of, NBA players, tons of NFL players, come out of there every year. Like, more recent guys would be like Jalen Ramsey and Derek Barnett, two first-round draft pick, guys, all-pro guys. But they played there as well too, so it's kind of that type of a place. And then I went on and played at Princeton. I was a defensive back, and then went straight out of Princeton and coaching the NFL for 15 years before retiring 3 years ago, and moving back to Cleveland and starting this world and meeting you and loving it being back here.
Yeah, now there's something I can testify to you and your father's character. It's like the very first time I met you and your old man, it's just the way that you're engaged and the way that we have conversations. It's almost like I feel like I've known you forever, and some of the best stories I've ever heard in my life were from you two. So obviously, going from Ivy League school into coaching the NFL, and some of the crazy stories you had I feel like there's probably like a cultural barrier where you're like, and you walk into that, I'm saying, a lot of these guys probably come from the inner city. I was born in East Cleveland, et cetera, et cetera. But like I said, I think some of the most profound things that you said, as well as your father, is just how you guys genuinely and passionately cared about people that they probably gave up on. Perfect example, yesterday, I was speaking at a high school to high school kids, and they were so engaged about me telling them that they can. I said, I came from the same streets. I lived, in East Cleveland. I lived off Clark Fulton, West 140th. These kids were just so engaged because they were like, oh my God, this guy comes from where I come from or whatever. So take us through, I guess, your first couple years in coaching. What were some of the trials and tribulations that you went through? Because that's got to be, I would assume, a culture shock, going from Ivy League to, dealing with some of the players all over the country.
I would say some of the biggest transitions. I mean, I was so young, right? And so you're in your coaching. You're coaching with coaches who you're younger than a lot of their kids. Coaching players that are older than you, as well too.
That's got to be tough.
And then you just switched out to, so I've switched out of the playing mode, and so as I've explained to certain people, that was probably one of the biggest things, was making that mental transition from being player to being a coach, especially when just like, it's never like I took a season off. I mean, I went straight from playing to coaching, right?
Yeah.
And so you've been in it your whole life, but you haven't been in this role. You know what I mean? You know, so to say, and it's different. Like you've got to separate yourself from the intensity, so to say, of the moment. Like, you know, that over adrenaline, over competitivenh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Getting too involved in all that type of stuff, and be
more logical.
Yeah.
I assume,
yeah. Be a teacher, be a mentor, be a leader, like off to the side. But then when they're inside the white lines and the battle's going, you know what I mean? Like that's for them, not for you, sort of things, right? And so just, you know, making that transition out of it, and then just learning, honestly. I mean, you know what you know, right, from growing up in the profession and playing your positions, but it's still such a small fraction to like all of football that's out there, right? Like the X's and O's, and then the psychology of teaching, and the psychology in leadership, and body language, and just like all, and I don't know, just all those other nuances, all those other things. So like early on in my career was just like I talked about, it was like kind of I looked at it as like being at a like an Ivy League master's program or PhD type program, like not specialized in, you know, kind of moving around positions every year. I was a strength coach, you know, I was a coaching on defense, a special teams coach. Like when we won the Super Bowl, you know, I was coaching offensive line for Sean Payton, you know, there at the Saints, so on the offensive side of things. And so I got a chance to be around some really, really, really good coaches and players, Hall of Famers, you know, early in my career, and kind of like wearing multiple hats and kind of moving around. And I feel like that helped accelerate my my development. You know, I mean, by 26, I was a defensive coordinator in the league, the youngest defensive coordinator in the history of the league. And I look back on it, I was like, I wouldn't have been prepared or ready for that yet, had I not had all those experiences, especially coaching offense for Sean Payton and with Drew Brees, right? Like that was probably the one that set me up the most to be able to go back and be a defensive play caller and whatnot.
I just can't believe Drew Brees didn't have more than one Super Bowl ring. Like that part is just so reflexive too.
It is. It's crazy. But then you see the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you go back and you probably say like, okay, same thing with Brett Favre. You know, and you list, you know, a number of those other ones. But I agree. I mean, it was that was how good that offense was.
They were just
how
lights
good
out.
He was, yeah, no doubt.
But then it was during the Brady era.
Yeah,
so
we won more games in that 3-year span that we were down there coaching than any other team in the NFL. But unfortunately, the 2 years after winning the Super Bowl, we had. We lost in the playoffs on like heartbreaking last plays of a game.
I remember that too.
The Beastquake game, and then the next year was the San Francisco game. You know, and so just kind of the way it is sometimes.
What was the call again? Where even like Browns fans were like, God, we know that feeling. I forgot exactly what the call was where they turned it over. I feel like that was fairly recently though. That wasn't during the Drew Brees era, but. So the first, who was the first team that you coached for?
The first team that I coached for was actually the Redskins back when they were still the Redskins, not the Commanders.
I hear they're going back. I hear that.
Hey, it's crazy. You know, it's just like who stays in one, like normally you have to move, right, to like change the name, but like who stays in one place and then just keeps changing the name every few years? I don't know. Obviously, I guess Washington, but yeah, I coached in a couple places that are formerly, right. I mean, I coached for the Rams when they were still in St. Louis, you know,
St. Louis Rams.
Yeah. And like I said, the Commanders back when they were still the Redskins, but that was the first team.
Now, what was it like coaching? Because I know your old man, he's very intense. Mm-hmm. What was it like coaching on the same staff, especially a Super Bowl championship level team? Like how intense was that? Because I could only imagine knowing you two jokesters, like how crazy it got.
Yeah, it was intense. I would say, going back to your former question, that was probably the other thing. One of the other things that I had to learn, because we are so similar, right? and you've been raised by the person, and now and you look up to him, and you're, and whatnot, and then you want to be like him, and now he's your boss, and so you're just around him 24/7 as well too.
It's exhausting.
And so exactly, but you act like him, right? And some of the other older coaches that you're around, that you idolize and whatnot, right? And so some of their same intensity, some of their same stuff, say the same way, and that was something I had to learn early on, was because, like, there's a difference between, like, being right, wrong, da-da-da, and stuff like that, and then, like, perceptions, right? And that's what I had to learn was, okay, like, those coaches are older. Like, those coaches are old enough to be these players' dads, and, like, they've got pelts on the wall, and, like, they come from a, different era of coaching or whatever, and, like, that's, like, kind of accepted, understood from the players, versus... Okay, it's like, bro, you're younger than me. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be that intense, as intense, or go off, right? So that was a big learning process as well too, where you're just trying to, like, almost like repeat what you're seeing. I think you're seeing that, honestly, that's part of what you hear. It's been problems with the McDaniels tree. Right, yeah. I mean, not the McDaniels tree, the Bill Belichick tree, with all those guys that go off other places and try to be just like him. But it's like, okay, like, this ain't New England. Like, those pelts don't come with you, right? You know what I mean? And you weren't the head coach there, and you're young, and this is your first, head coaching opportunity, sort of thing. And, like, you're not Bill, right? And so
the crazy thing about Bill, I mean, obviously the Browns had him, and then when you look at that coaching staff, I mean, Nick Saban, Kent State graduate, arguably one of the best, football coaches in college of all times. Andy Reid was on that team. God, who was it? There was a couple Super Bowl championship level. Like, you're just like, I mean, that level of coaching is just, I mean, like you said, some people can't shift over, but I just feel like Belichick just, he's got it. And the one thing that I had to learn, especially as, like, being like a sales coach, because I do coaching in a different capacity, is, my high school basketball team. So when I went to Twinsburg, I played under Coach Solchek football. I mean, if we lost or we did something stupid, he'd make us run gassers at the end of the game. So, and he was very old school, like the guy chain smoked, but he was, like, always running with us when we were doing different drills and all that. Just, anything you could imagine about, like, an old school coach, like, he fit to the T. And then I get injured in football, which was devastating to me. And again, something I think that you went through, and I'm going to have you share that specific story, because that just really spoke to my heart. Got injured in football. I felt like some of the coaches kind of like sided against me, and they said, "Oh, this kid isn't real, blah blah blah." And then I had to get, come to find out it's brain surgery. I had to get my C1 and C2 operated on. But to come out of that environment and then shift over to St. Peter Chanel, where I played championship level basketball. We were playing against, like, Columbus, Brookhaven, St. Vincent, St. Mary's, like the top ranked teams in the country. But and Coach Crayley at the time was incredibly intense. Like, there was I came out of a zone basketball team, and then we switched to full court pressure, like always running, always getting up and down the court, running suicides, we had 2 a days in basketball, you know what I'm saying? So, but to get to managing people and turning that down a little bit, I know how frustrating it is, because all you know is go, 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 like championship level, blah, blah, blah. But then you have to have that part where, like, you got to push them just enough, but not push them over the ledge. And I know that's, like, probably got to be one of the toughest things I would feel like for a coach in the NFL is, like, do I Bobby Knight and throw this chair? And that Bobby Knight is, God rest his soul. He can do no wrong to me, because he was like when I played pickup basketball, like, I would pick 4 random people on the court, and I would still win. And I attribute that to, like, the Bob Knight basketball. Like, you pick the people up, you see what they're good at, and then you let them thrive in the areas that they're good at, and it doesn't matter, and we would go to wherever, and I would just pick up the guys that, like, a lot of times it would be even people they didn't pick up, and we keep winning. It's because once you can identify what somebody's good at and you can get them to pull it out of themselves, then they become, endless in that specific, right? It's no different than when Dennis Rodman stopped trying to score and just started 19, 20 rebounds a game, you know what I'm saying? But enough about me rambling about my experience in sports. So what was the best player, in your opinion, that you ever coached and why?
So the best player that I ever coached, it's a toss-up between Sean Taylor, God rest his soul, and Drew Brees. And so, Sean Taylor was, in a short amount of time, in a lot of that was like projections. I'm comparing him to a Super Bowl champion, captain, guaranteed, surefire first ballot Hall of Fame. But Sean was just a freak of nature athletically, but then he was so good talent-wise, at the skills of football as well too. And then he had this mentality of his work ethic, his no fear, his competitive violence, all of those things. These things that say, my father had been trying to instill and coach, into people for years. Sean was just ready-made with, and Sean was probably truly the first that he had to actually go the opposite direction, and we had to go the opposite direction with and grab and pull back. We have this mantra that we still say to this day of live on the edge, play on the edge, never hurt the team. Yeah. That's the mantra we want to play. And we literally, G-Dub literally created that mantra from an ad lib, in a meeting, trying to be Sean, we got to get you under control, you know what I mean, sort of thing, because it's all this great stuff that you're doing, but you're going over the top on these other, personal fouls and stuff like that, and it's a wash, on the other stuff. So live on the edge, play on the edge, never hurt the team. And so, he was that, and then Drew was just, we've all seen it. I tell people, I've said this forever. It's on the day that Drew dies, they're gonna go, do an autopsy or whatever. They're gonna cut him open. They're gonna find gears and mechanical parts and stuff like that, right?
He's just built like a machine.
Yeah, he's like a cyborg, or he's not human, and he's not a robotic, personality. He's a warm person, a very smart person, great human being. But I've never met another person or been around another person who is as machine-like with their discipline and their fundamentals, and everything they do in life. This is what I'm doing this day, it's this is what I do here. If they say, touch the line, I'm going to literally run over there, touch the line, see my toe touch the line, and run back, right? We see all these people miss the, every little bitty thing to the nth degree, and that's why where you see him go out and perform the way he would perform, when the lights were on, right? But it was every little bit, no matter how many games were won, no matter how many accolades, it was just the same process, every single rep, every single day, no matter what it was, not even in practice. If it was just something off to the side, something he was doing on his own, right? When nobody was looking, when he's working out. It was he was absolutely amazing, right? And his ability to take that coaching from Sean Payton and translate it out in the field was the next level as well too, right? I used to tell people about if anybody knows what a superconductor is, right? There was that was basically Drew. It's you have this coach and you have these plays, then you have this player, but something's a lot of times some of it's lost. It was into the out into the ether, right, and out into the atmosphere when you're coaching them, right? But if you ever had this thing where that knowledge and the vision and the way the coach sees it could pass into the player, and then the player could conceptualize all of that stuff and like go out there and like see it like on the fly when everything's moving fast and like actually like operationally use all that almost like he's playing Madden.
Yeah.
Like that's what the Drew Brees, Sean Payton like relationship, you know, was like, and it was just uncanny.
Yeah, and a couple points. So the first, and this is, I always like talk to people about it. They're like, you know, I can't believe this player did X, Y, and Z. Like when, perfect example, when Conor McGregor, his boy got jumped by this guy or whatever. Conor McGregor hops on a plane, flies over, tries to run up on this guy, busts out the window of his bus, like, and that, to your point, is the raw and that's the raw aggression that I had when I played sports. I mean, the fan or the parents would joke that they could often hear me swearing in the stand. Like, I was just raw aggression, and that is, I mean, I think the difference between good and great to me in the NFL is people that can, and even in college ball, because I'm a big college ball guy, the great coaches are the ones that can take that raw aggression or that raw energy and tame it. And it's no different to me than like salespeople. Like salespeople are 90% of them are nuts. Really good ones are. And you have to like take it in and tame it and kind of whittle it away and just say like, get just to that point, but don't go over. So I think that was a really, really, really good analogy that you brought out. The other is, so the story you told, and I brought this literally to my sales meeting the very next week, about the gentleman that you got a second chance in NFL. Take us through that story. It was one of the most riveting things I have ever heard in my entire life. Like, I could not wait to go back and tell my sales team.
And so, which one?
That was the one where the guy was locked up for 2 years.
Oh yeah. From the other night.
Yeah.
And so Anthony Hargrove, one of my all-time favorites, you know, that I've been around, and you know, he just came from a really hard upbringing. Nothing, like, didn't know his father. Like mom died from AIDS, you know, when he was young. He had you know, raised his siblings. You know, went off to college, was a quarterback at Georgia Tech, got moved to defensive end, right? I mean, he just kept getting bigger.
Athleticism.
Oh yeah, just kept getting bigger and bigger, more physical goal, but had some problems, undiagnosed problems, / you know, he was so smart, and he loved, and he's also one of the most like the funniest, like naturally funniest, like people I've ever been around, right? And almost like a good comedian, right? I mean, and that's part of, like, a lot of good comedians are good chameleons, right?
Yeah.
So there's a coping mechanism there as well too. I mean, he was, exactly, mental health issues, but he was very bright, and he learned how to like make people laugh, make people smile, be a chameleon, and then people had prostituted themselves on his talent, right? Where they just worried about, hey, what you could do for me as a player, you know, the wrong type of coaches, so to say. And so he had a lot of issues, and got kicked out of the league, arrested. Lucky he didn't wasn't killed by police on some of the wild arrests and drug addiction and stuff like that. And but come to find out, like, when all that happened, right, and he got put in the psych ward, I mean, he was, had, legit, schizophrenia and like multiple personalities, bipolar and split personalities, and so he was in a padded room, like, down in Miami for almost 2 years, thinking that he may never get out, and he got out. And didn't have anything, didn't have a job, didn't have any money, anything, stuff like that. And his agent, reached out to us. This was like right when we had first gotten to the Saints, that first off season of 2009, before the championship season. And we're like, hey, yeah, we'll bring you in, for a tryout and whatnot. And he was just, and we signed him. And from that point, forward, like, you couldn't get him like off the field. We actually moved him defensive tackle, right? So now all of a sudden he's playing another new position, right, that he's never played before. He was about 300 pounds in like literal six-pack. You know, I mean, he was just 305 pounds. He played L3 on kickoff coverage for us. So he was starting at defensive tackle for us, and then he was starting on kickoff coverage for us, and he would be like literally the first. I mean, he would be running a 4.6 down the field at 305 pounds.
That's impressive.
Wedge busting.
Yeah, I thought I was doing something.
Yeah.
I ran a 4.9 at I was 280 pounds, and I was not Vin Diesel at all.
Dude, he was just unbelievable. Like, you watch him play special teams, defense, like never slowing down, never coming out. I mean, that was his personality, right? And it's part of that, a little bit of that bipolar, right? Like that manic side was always, out there, but worried about the other side. And so we all of a sudden, he does some good things. Obviously, we do great things as a team, and we're all of a sudden in the Super Bowl. And the day before the Super Bowl, we're in the stadium. All right, we're down in what used to be called the Landshark Stadium, but down there in Miami. And it's just like a walkthrough. It's like even like a ceremonial walkthrough the day before. And I noticed and he's crying, over on the sideline, just standing there on the sideline, in tears. And I was just like, I come up to him. I was coaching the offensive line, so I was like coaching but we had got a great relationship because I was like his scout team coach, you know what I mean, as well too that whole year. And so we had sat together on planes, rapped a bunch, that whole sort of thing. And I was like, hey, what's up? You good? And he pointed like outside the stadium, and he was like, right outside the stadium. I mean, you could see it from right there was the insane asylum, or whatever the PC term for it is, a psych ward, where he had been. And just previously gotten let out like 8 months prior or whatever, and he'd sat in there for 2 years, and his window faced the football stadium, in his room, so he'd see the football that football stadium, for 2 years, thinking he was never going to be healthy, and he was never going to get out, and he was never going to be able to play again, and all that stuff like that. And eight months later, his first year being out, he's starting in the Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl in that stadium that he looked out to all, and it just made my hair stand up. You're like, these things are just like destined to happen. And then we had that amazing win the next night, and it was just like, it was like truly one of those like destiny, sort of feelings.
That was one of the most riveting stories I think I've ever heard, and it's just a testament, obviously, to you as a coach, because, and obviously not just you, the entire coaching staff, because I feel like as a former player, when I got hurt, there's a lot of coaches that like turn on our players, but you guys like really did right by that guy. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, that dude, I cannot imagine mentally what he went through for like those 2 years, and then to come out and then you guys give him a shot and truly care about his well-being and making sure that he stayed together. And now he like works for a school system.
Yeah, I was going to tell you. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's amazing. Roundabout now is he's a professional speaker. And he's really good at it. But then he's in East St. Louis, a really hard part of East St. Louis. He's the head high school football coach, and he's the director of like in-school suspension, right? And as a big time mentor in that community, and trying to change lives and impact lives, and give some things that like he wish he would have had, or hard lessons that he had to learn through life, or things that we taught him that he's now trying to impart, on the next generation. I mean, he's a special one for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the most impressive stories I've ever heard. So, you were with the Rams at that time, right? Or, with him.
I was at the Saints.
The Saints.
With him.
Okay, I don't know why I said the Rams.
I was at the Saints with him. Yeah, but he's back up there in East St. Louis. Yep.
Yeah. So, big sigh here. And then you came to the Browns. Mm-hmm. What was the Browns like when you first walked in? And what position was your old man in? And just what was that? What's it like going from? And I'm not here to dog the Browns. I've been since 1981, okay, cardiac kid. I love the Browns. I've been through this, with all jokes and due respect, this manic relationship with the Browns my entire life. What was that like? And I'm sure the listeners can understand what I'm saying. The guys in this studio are laughing. What was that like going from a championship level team to the Browns, who had 45 quarterbacks in like 2 years? Like, what was that like? And like, how do you get people engaged in that type of environment?
Yeah. So walking in the door is a whole big difference from the game one of my first year there, right? So like there's always that honeymoon stage, and the situation was already vastly different from when we walked in the door to start that year, which my first year at the Browns, unfortunately, was the 0-16, debacle.
Oh, we had a parade.
I'm aware, and day one. Walk in day one. I mean, you're looking like we just signed Jamie Collins, to a deal. You got Christian Kirksey in there. Demario Davis is still the captain and the alpha male of the team, of the roster. He's still there. All these people are there, and like, hey, and
Kirksey was a dog.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna get the the draft still coming up. We knew we had the number one pick. Like, we're going to draft Miles, and whatnot, and so we're going to get this, elite pass rusher. Hey, we're going to get the quarterback position fixed. We're going to get the free safety, position fixed, and beef up the corners.
Oh, always sounds good.
And from then and there, we did one of those things, which was draft Miles. Barely, because we weren't going to draft Miles.
Why was it barely? You got to tell the story.
Because until G-Dub got involved at the end, the last 48 hours, like, we wanted to draft Mitch Trubinsky.
Oh God!
There's some.
Could you imagine if we recruited Mitch over Myles Garrett? Oh my God!
But then proceeded to. Basically cut Demario Davis, right? And how many Pro Bowls, All Pros has he gone to since, right? If he had one, if you look at like how he's played, even since that date, and if he had one championship, if he had one Super Bowl ring, like, he would be probably a surefire, Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Probably first ballot Hall of Famer, right? Like his stats and whatnot, and his impact, merit that, right? And so he's gone. Beyond just the player that he is, like that was the one true alpha male leader in the organization, right?
Yeah.
Like from a player standpoint, from like that like level, he was
that time frame. I could see that.
Oh yeah, he was different. Right, so that dude's gone. Don't fix the free safety thing, which was a cluster, and so now you literally have zero free safeties on the roster, zero. And so now you have to take a poor kid in Jabril Peppers, who wasn't drafted to play free safety, and was told he wasn't going to have to play free safety, and had never played it, and now you got to go back and play him at free safety position you never played before, right? And then not only do you not beef up the corners, but then 9 days before the start of the season, you cut Joe Hayden, your other captain, and 9 days later, he's starting against you in the opening game of the season with the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? And so it's like the honeymoon phase was kind of over by that point in time.
What else could they do wrong?
But hey, I mean, it things got better than the next year, the next draft, and whatnot. And in that situation, especially kind of when G-Dub took over there the last half of that season, and we had a little run, had some fun. But I genuinely loved. Like, it may sound crazy when I say all that, but I loved my time there at the Browns. Every place, every organization, every team, every business has like their stuff, right? Like every family, they have their stuff. Like, there's no perfect, right?
Nothing perfect.
I'll say this. I said this before. Like the Haslams, I've been a lot of places in my life, and they are probably like the number one I've been around in terms of like spoiling and taking care of like their people. And I'm not talking about just like the temps, right? The coaches and the players, which are the temps. I'm talking about the perms, right? Like the administrative assistants, everybody on the business side, the ticketing side, and stuff like that. I mean, they really, really, really take care of them and do right by them, and that's like that was a kind of a cool and unique experience. So I mean, it was like I always say, like that they're in the Saints. Like those are my two favorite places, you know, that I was at and had been at, and love my time at the Browns.
And I mean, Joe Hayden, probably one of my more favorite players. I mean, for a period of time in my career, for those that don't know, I'm not just some boring mortgage guy. I was actually in music. I DJ'd. I did record promo for all the record labels, et cetera, Akon, 50 Cent, all this good stuff. But Joe Hayden, courtesy of my guy Joe Orvik down there at Barley House, really long time personal friend of mine, and Bobby George, Town Hall, Barley House, all that good stuff. They always were good at bringing in the players and taking care of them. And one thing I could say about Joe is, like, literally he would invite us over to, like, it was like a penthouse, like, right next door. Like, I cannot believe that year when they let him go. I was just like, I mean, I know that he, like, had some injuries and stuff like that, but I'm just like, this guy is like, he's a franchise player. Like, you don't get rid of a guy that walks into clubs. He doesn't have a ton of security. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are coming up to him. He was always super friendly, shaking their hand. He'd sign whatever, and we get rid of him. And I'm just like, this is the most Browns thing I've ever seen happen in my entire life. Like, how does that factor in? And so how much longer were you with the organization for?
For after that, so that was all right there before season one. So 2 years. I was there with her 2 years.
Yeah, and I mean, G-Dub, aka Greg, his old man, is one of my favorite coaches. To see him on the sideline and then see him in God, what was the one on HBO? The
Hard Knocks.
The Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
I was like, that guy is a guy I could play for. Like, out of everybody that was in that locker room, I was like, I like that guy. Like, he's it. So, but football.
That's who he is. You got a chance to see it. I tell people all the time. I was like, it ain't for the cameras. That's 24/7. Like, the only people he's not that way with are his grandkids, right? Yeah. So I tell him to, like, just soak it up, but, like, don't let Grandpa fool you. You know what I mean? Like, hey, but otherwise, like, that's who he is. That's how he is, and I think people respect that because you know how he feels about stuff. Like, he's not gonna mince words. He's not gonna beat around the bush or, like, tell you white lies. He's gonna tell you what he thinks, tell you what he expects. What accountable, and that's how it is. In all walks of life.
And he literally, like, I was a young street kid or whatever when I was younger, like. So, like, I've been through some, like, crazy stuff where, you fought your way out of nightclubs. Like, you thought people were gonna, like, you don't even understand how you got out of it. So when you come from that energy, and then the way that he directs that energy back, and you can always look, like, when you look in a man's eyes, you can say, like, okay, this dude can match my energy. Like, I feel like this guy can give me a run for my money if we start scrapping out back. So, but he's just such a respectful man, and I can't speak enough, not just to your testament, but to your old man. I mean, he's just, he makes you feel so welcome and like so understood, and like you aren't the bad guy, like how you took a guy that came out of an insane asylum for 2 years and you just kind of treated him like a human being. I feel like that is the testament to good coaching in the NFL, in my honest opinion. But so we get out of the Browns area. Unfortunately, that sounds like where you hung up your I guess proverbial cleats, even though you're coaching. And then what was the next step in your career path? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, so after that, I went to the Jets for a couple years, but always thought, that we'd move back here to Cleveland if I ever retired and shut it down. And then we just did it a little bit earlier than expected. So went to the Jets for a couple years and then shut it down 3 years ago, moved back about 2.5 years ago here to Cleveland, and then just kind of went into business. And so went into still coaching, as I tell people all the time, like still coaching, still leading, still mentoring. It's the same game, just different X's and O's. But financial coach, financial advisor. Got a big financial advisory firm here in Cleveland called Lakefront Capital. Work there with my business partners, all of whom you've met, and deal a lot in the sports world, obviously naturally with individuals or businesses or endowments in the sports world, but do that, and then also have gotten into the sports talk, media side of things. Yeah,
the stories you guys have are just absolutely priceless.
No doubt. With Big Play Media, and started our own kind of nationally syndicated sports talk TV show and podcast, called "Come Get Some," which is like that's G-Dub's kind of the saying, so to say, like, right, yeah, his mantra is his rallying cry, right? Come get some, with a little another word usually added on the end of it, and whatnot, and so
probably a lot of swearing. On that show,
but
I wish we could do it, but we're on the radio. So.
But yeah, so I feel like I'm still getting my coaching fix. I'm still getting, to make that impact. Still getting my football fix. But then able to actually like also coach my kids' little leagues, out in Berea, t-ball and little league soccer and that type of stuff, and go to their singing lessons and recitals and kind of participate, and live where I want to live. It's not like one of these things where it's like team can be like, hey, you're fired, or you can't work here anymore, and it's like there's only 32 of them. You're not going to find another one across town. You got to move to another city, another state, right? So you don't get to kind of pick where you set down your roots, and so get to have that stability in an adult hometown for me, and in a true hometown, for my little ones, and we love it.
They love Cleveland. I can attest to that. So with the wealth management and approaching these players and all that good stuff. I mean, they get approached a lot, and honestly, so one of my business partners, Chrissy, who she lives down in Columbus, has a branch for us, but she was in sports management. She worked with a lot of bigger players, doing promo and management and stuff like that. And one of the first things that she said when she met Blake was, these guys get approached all the time, and you hear all the horror stories and all that good stuff. But I think one of the first things that popped out to me about you is you were specifically passionate about what we're aligned with, which is, women, minorities, and investors in the real estate space, Gen Z, millennials, that's kind of your target market. Tell us, what's that, how do you, differentiate yourself versus, a traditional, no offense, but perfect example. I go to the NBA conference, and 98% of the people there, you're just God, I just want to punch myself in the face. They're just so out of touch with reality. They're so out of touch with the general person from the street that's trying to refinance or purchase a house. These are corporate level executives, and you just can feel I just feel so out of place in that setting, where I'm just I feel so out of place. It makes me comfortable in what I'm doing because I know that I'm on the right path, because we deal with, Main Street America, our average loan amount's $200,000. It may be that, a factory worker or somebody who works at a bar or service industry or manager or whatever, and then we also help players build out portfolios, through real estate. So, but what's your point of distinction? What's your unique selling proposition in that space? And I kind of have an idea why, but what do you think that you can do differently?
Yeah, the biggest thing is, I kind of build the model, so to say, of how we do things, both the structure, then the art, the soft skills, everything on literally everything that I was already doing in my entire coaching life, right? And then it's just again different inputs, right? I mean, you're sitting there talking about the if-thens of balancing the not just even just the portfolio, but your overall financial picture, right? You know what I mean? And whatnot, playing, you
literally did a whiteboard with us.
Exactly. And so instead of me, sitting there saying, okay, it's this, scheme, it's that scheme, hey, and if they do this, check to this, blah, 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 whatever. That's just the data, right? That's just data input, but the overall aspect of how do you take something complex and make it simple?
Correct.
How do you make them feel comfortable? with you and the situation? How do you get them to talk and be able to so that you can align the fundamental math and the fundamental data, but like with what moves them? Like, you understand, at the end of the day, like, you can put this whole plan together, you can put this, you can advise them, but how are you going to get them to, or help them move to action, right? If they could call to action. If they could do it all by themselves, like, they would do it all by themselves, like they wouldn't need you or wouldn't be with you, right? And so how do you do that? And like that's coaching, right? Like, that's goal. It's a lot of like things I've learned over time on like a goal formation, and then the goal attainment process, but you go through with your athletes, with your players, or with your our people now in our firm, of like what do you want? Like, what are your goals, hopes, dreams? What's the time horizons on those? What does that look like? Okay, now we can reverse engineer it, like, from that standpoint. Like, this is, what do we have to work with? Like, how much time? Like, okay, this is how we get there. Yeah. This is how we get there. Here's the disciplines. Here's the drills. Here's the whatnot. But then it's a collaborative type approach. It's not like you're not getting together every day, like maybe multiple times a day, like you are when you're coaching, right? Where you're going in there and you're getting there before practice, and then you're getting right in there after practice and debriefing. But you're getting together, say, like quarterly, right, or monthly, or whatever is needed. So I would say that's a whole nother process. With us, at Lakefront, is it's not it's not this cookie cutter, like, big time kind of corporate manufactured, type of process. Like you said, where you're walking around with your suit and tie, and you're kind of trying to you're trying to big boy people, which I've never understood at the end of the day, because it's like, you ultimately are going to work for them. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, you're not better than the person you serve. You're gonna work for them, and the only way it's going to work is if, like, you can reach them, and they're different than this person. That maybe they're all basketball players, they're all football players, they're all this or that, but they're different. Like, I didn't coach each player, even at my position, the same because they were each different human beings. They each had different skill sets, different comprehension levels, different ways that they would respond to, like, different coaching styles and whatnot. And so you had to really, like, figure them out, right, and coach them differently than them. And, like, maybe we still all got to get to the same end point. But maybe we do it at a slightly different process, right? And so that's our process, there at Lakefront is this very much this white glove, holistic, approach that's built on a relationship based, and coaching kind of, servant leadership based, model.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what you're kind of, the biggest thing that I have to do with, like, salespeople and, like, break them out of the habit of is, like, the perfect example, first 60 days in mortgages, I sucked. I was awful. Like, I had just graduated college at the top of my class. I thought people wanted to hear all this nerdy mortgage finance, blah, 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 interest rates, blah, blah, blah. And I could not close the door behind me. And I'm a good salesperson. Like, I came out, I was slinging cell phones when I was in college, and I was really good at it. And my dad told me my entire career, he was like, son, you're going into sales. I was like, no, absolutely not. And then lo and behold, here we are 20-something years later. But when I got good, to your point, it was like, I was like, when I was tutoring, perfect example, when I was tutoring at Kent State, I would tutor at the main campus, like calculus, business, all this stuff. And then I would tutor at the Twinsburg campus, which was loaded with people that were in their 50s working at Chrysler trying to get a 4-year degree. And what I was exponentially good at is, like, no matter where you were at, I figured out a way to break it down the simplest way possible. You know what I'm saying? And salespeople that try to talk over people, or they try to sound too smart, or they try to, like, I worked for a place where they wanted you to read, like, a 2-sheet manual as your intro sales call, and I basically tore it up and threw it out the window. I said, I don't sell like that, and I proved myself, which I've always been top 5 at every company I ever worked for. Like, that to me doesn't work. What works is just what you said. Like,
no doubt, and that's what immediately drew me to you. You know, we talk about like real recognizes real. And like I said, like the first time I got a chance to see you at your event is the ability to immediately project your voice in calm and quiet a large room that nobody else could.
Wild animals in real estate.
And the body language and the presence there. But then also as I've watched you continuously where you'll be in environments. I watch you with like different experts of different, a level of expertise, and because you know your stuff doesn't mean that you can teach it, right?
Correct.
And you being able to even stop like other people on the fly and be like, okay, like I'm gonna give you that was a PhD version. But see, you're reading the room.
Yeah,
and you're reading the room, and then you just got enough experience, right? Like I'm gonna take it for you. This is what you need to know, right? Yeah. And then even some Socratic method of like asking questions versus just getting up there and just talking at people, right? With maybe knowledge that's above and beyond them, and not asking questions, not like getting any sort of like feedback. Being able to speak to your audience, so to say, right? Like, and that's what I noticed immediately with you, that you see with all good communicators, all good people. I said forever, like the educators. Right, like educators take something simple and make it complex.
Correct.
For whatever reason, to fill up a whole semester,
PhD,
to fill up a textbook, to validate the time that it's taken me to get my all my advanced degrees and be an academician and whatnot. Whereas a communicator takes something complex and makes it simple.
Correct.
Right, and they could be the same person. You can have to be the PhD, right? But hey. I want you to do the surgery on me. I want you to teach the person who's doing the surgery on me, right? And it's not always the same. It's not always the same two people, so to say. And that's something I always respected with you from that standpoint. But you're exactly right? Like as salespeople, people are buying stock in you.
Correct.
Whether they realize it or not, like they're buying stock in you, like how they perceive you and whatnot, right?
Yeah, they don't care about your business or who's backing you. They care about you.
And then they're buying more often than not off of pain, not pleasure, right? And so it's off of them. Right? Off of them. Like there's something moving them to action. There's some pain, some whatever that's moving them to action, right? And so what you don't want to do is like distract the here and there, in between there, where you're trying to like overly, show them like all the bells and whistles and over talk them and stuff like that, It's
like the guy selling the tree in the Christmas story, like there's a tree, and he's like trying to like sell like half the tree's gone, but
like, I hear you, I understand you. Like I'm here to help you. What are your problems?
Give it back.
Yeah. What are your problems? How can I help you? How can I solve those problems for you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so there's two testaments. First of all, the booming voice comes from my mentor, one of my mentors, Matt Redicelli, Rock the House. He's actually DJing our Christmas party December 8th. Make sure you sign up for it because we're almost sold out. I'm not responsible if they're sold out at the door. It's going to be an exclusive event. But he used to make us do like voice inflections and stuff like that with microphones so that we knew how to engage people. Mm-hmm. I DJ'd bar mitzvahs, homecomings, weddings, like anything you name. Teen clubs, like where there's 300 screaming kids and you got to engage them. So I learned a lot from that, in that aspect. And, really, like I said, it's just being like a real person. Like yesterday when I stood in front of those kids at Lake Erie High School, these kids are just so excited to learn about real estate. Like they were just stopping me every time, like every 2 seconds they were stopping me to like ask me a question. And to your point, I stop and I listen to them. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because I have to get down to their level. These kids are bouncing off the wall. They probably just had sugar and they're just going like this. And like I have to match their energy, which I think a lot of people like miss on that boat, is like you just have to match people's energy and where they're coming from. And these kids were just so excited to talk about real estate. And it made me feel really good. Being able to, talk to them in that capacity. So we got about a few minutes left. The first part is, where can people get a hold of you? Twitter, Instagram. Shout out your podcast again. We're live on the radio and want everybody to tune in.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I'm out there on any social, like you name it, you can find it. It's usually under, it's Blake Williams, or like usually, Coach Blake Williams, and whatnot, and then Lakefront, Capital and whatnot, and then the show is Come Get Some, same thing, out there. The Come Get Some show on Twitter. You can watch the live episodes on Twitter, X, as the cool kids call it, these days. YouTube, and then also Bally Sports, on TV, Great Lakes and Bally Sports Cleveland. Yeah, appreciate you guys. Reach out. And appreciate you having me here, brother. I can't wait for that Christmas party.
It's going to be crazy. One of the notes on our Instagram live feed is Rick and Blake the GOAT. So I guess we did something right today. All right, folks, that's about it. Investor Source CLE. We are reconvening the first of January, the first Thursday of January. Shout out to Jenny, who was not able to be here today. I miss you. My co-host, J. Bella Interior Designs. You need to check her out. Women Who Invest, my sister's group, specifically for women who want to invest in real estate. Spread the Love Foundation, my good friend Crazy Bone, very, very worthy organization. And my business partner, Kaz with Iconic Partners. Equity Equals Freedom podcast. You can check us out. We're streaming on all live platforms, Pandora, Spotify, all that good stuff. And again, I'm very thankful for a good friend of mine, Blake, for hopping on the radio, and going through his career. Very inspiring guy. And make sure you check him out, Lakefront Capital as well. They got some really intriguing events. And what was the event that you were a part of last week that I really liked? It was the PGG.
Yeah.
Great event.
Professional Gridiron Group, yep.
Professional Gridiron Group. Again, folks, tuning out, Rick Rucker. You check me out at www.rickrucker.com, Equity CMG. We are out. Check you guys later.
The proceeding was a paid informational program.